From hero's light to shadowed might, a new executive rises.
Hello everyone, welcome to What If Belle Became a Sadistic Executive of the Freya Familia movie. Before we start, please go support tenma-sama for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistaken character's gender, but of course Belle is a male. A completely different story from the original. Belle will be an executive of the Freya family. He is a manipulator as well as childish and sadistic. He is very protective of those he loves. In that category falls his goddess Freya, who has a great appreciation for him. The beginning, prologue. Aiz Wallenstein, level 4 adventurer of the Loki family, was running for her life after the monster Rex Amphisbaena took her by surprise on an excursion with her family and sank her into the water. She did not know how to swim, so she easily sank into the water. Before any member of her family could help her, a strange hole at the bottom of the water began to suck her in. Aiz Graya. Being dragged by the water. Hang on. Aiz began to cough heavily and looked around. He was on a strange floor with water, although this one was not as deep as the previous one. Besides that, this water was warm and he felt that it was slowly healing his wounds. Aiz. A healing lake. Standing up. Aiz couldn't think too much as a great pain invaded her. She looked at her stomach in shock when she saw her own sword piercing it from side to side. Aiz cugged. Spitting blood. Aiz withdrew his sword with a grimace of pain and threw himself into the healing water, letting his wound heal slowly, but he was greatly surprised to see that the lake suddenly began to heat up and he had to get out of the water. Briar. A scream of a monster. Aiz was going to turn around if not for why a strong blow sent her flying. She was weak, not only that, she was injured, so even a level 3 could against her. To make matters worse, her sword had also been sent flying and was several meters away from her. Aiz tried to stand up with difficulty, but something giant fell on her back, knocking her to the ground. Aiz let out a scream when she felt a boiling liquid touch her skin. His clothes melted away, leaving only his armor, which was also starting to melt, but at a slower pace. Aiz looked behind him, seeing a strange slime monster with something shiny hanging from its forehead. He wasn't the only one, there were many more, all of them were responsible for boiling the water. Aiz tried to take her sword, but one of the monsters kicked her with his body and sent her crashing into a wall along with her sword, which stuck near her leg. Aiz tried to grab the sword, but she had no strength. It was stuck in the ground and she couldn't pull it out. She was desperate, she didn't know what to do. The monsters were getting closer and closer to her, and her whole family were probably still fighting against the monster Rex. She couldn't use her magic since she had no mana. She was going to die. Aiz. Mother, sorry, shedding tears. Aiz saw her inevitable end and simply waited for her death with sorrow and self-loathing for not being able to save her mother and avenge her father. This is my end, please someone help me. Crying. Slash. Brar. Aiz. A. The monster was split in half by a purple flash and exploded in a puff of smoke, leaving only its magic stone. Aiz looked in shock in front of him, an adventurer with white hair and black armor with purple touches and the symbol of a Valkyrie on his right shoulder. Hey, are you okay? There in front of Solo was the one she could call her hero, and she recognized him. There in front of her was the well-known Kuryusagi bellcranel, high executive of the Freya family and level 6. Belle. You are the doll princess, right? Level 4 of the Loki family, smiling. Aiz remained silent. Without knowing it, a strong glow appeared in her eyes when she saw Belle, her hero. History, 01. Riveria, a city considered the center of the world and the only one that had a dungeon where monsters could be generated, monsters that adventurers killed to obtain exilia and level up. A beautiful city that had gone through several moments, both good and bad, such as the Age of Heroes or the Dark Age. Right now I was in peace and harmony, being considered a city where you can go and fulfill your dreams, have fame, wealth, power, women or men behind you, etc, etc. But let's not focus on that, but on something else or someone else, and that someone was a somewhat effeminate white-haired man with red eyes who was looking at a blonde girl lying on the floor in front of him. Belle. Hey. Are you okay? Smiling. Aiz was shocked looking at the boy in front of her. She knew him, hell of course she knew him. He was bellcranel, a level 6 adventurer of the Freya family, a high-ranking executive, also known by his nickname given by the gods as Kuryusagi. He looked at her with curiosity in front of her. Aiz trembled slightly at his intimidating appearance. He wore light black armor with some violet touches on it and the symbol of a Valkyrie on his right shoulder. His white hair was a little long and messy, and his bangs were held by 5 red fasteners, 2 of them crossed in an X. He carried a strange purple scythe in his hand which shone slightly. Despite the brightness in Aiz's eyes when she saw her savior, she reacted quickly and desperately picked up her silver sword from the ground and pointed it at him. Belle calmed down, raising his hands. Aiz. Trembling. Belle. You're a doll princess, right? Level 4 of the Loki family, smiling. Aiz nodded doubtfully. Even without trusting Belle, she was injured and defenseless. On top of that, she was 2 levels lower than Belle. To make matters worse, he was from the rival family and a high executive, known as the fastest and most agile adventurer in the world. Belle smirked as he watched Aiz helplessly look at him, his grip on his sword wavering. Belle. What the hell happened to you that made you end up in that state? Laughing. Aiz blushed in embarrassment and sharpened her gaze, holding her sword firmly. Belle. What? Are you going to attack me? Mocking. Aiz growled and tried to slash Belle with his sword, a slash that was easily stopped by Belle's side. Belle. Haha, it's normal that you don't trust me, but don't worry, I won't do anything to you, smiling, unless you do something stupid, smiling grimly. Aiz trembled at Belle's intimidating aura as he took out a blue potion from his backpack. Belle take, sprang. Aiz was surprised when her wounds began to heal rapidly and her strength returned. Belle. I think you're fine like this, thinking. Belle. Otter senpai, smiling. The large bows appeared from across the room, increasing Aiz's fear. Otter. It's time to go back to Freya-sama, seriously. Belle. Right, smiling, see you, princess. Saying goodbye. Otter and Belle left very calmly, Otter tried to maintain it while Belle tried to bother him in some way. All before the eyes of Aiz, who was still in shock at what had just happened. Aiz. Aiz reacted to such a scream and looked to her side as a tall elf with jade hair, along with some other adventurers, ran towards her. Riveria Aiz, hugging her, are you okay? Worried. Aiz nodded, slowly looking at her almost non-existent clothes destroyed by that monster. Riveria. What happened to the monster? Looking around. Aiz. Kuryusagi, I'll kill him, looking at Riveria. Everyone tensed at that name and looked at Aiz with concern. Riveria. Are you okay? Didn't he do anything to you? Worried. Aiz. No, looking at Riveria, in fact, he gave me a healing potion, pointing to a jar on the ground. Finn. Didn't he do anything else? Cautious. Aiz. No, shaking his head. Finn. Okay, let's go back, we have to go back and finish the expedition, sighing. Belle. Hi. Otter. Why did you help her? Looking at Belle. Belle. Huh. You would have done the same, you're too kind despite your stoic face, laughing. Otter. Don't ask that, looking at Belle. Belle. Well, I wanted a favor from the goddess Loki, she is her favorite daughter, so somehow she has to thank me for saving her, laughing. Otter. I see, continuing walking. Belle. Come on, laughing, I want to see Rose-chan, laughing. Otter. Freya-sama will Kartagara you for that, looking at Belle. Belle. It doesn't matter, it's fine if she punishes me, she's my master after all, walking innocently. Otter just looked at him before nodding and continuing on his way to the surface. Finn. Listen, Aiz, never get close to him, seriously. Aiz. Why? Looking at Finn. Riveria. It's dangerous, looking at Aiz. Aiz. But he saved me, confused. Aerith. We will never know if he did it of his own free will or something more serious. Aiz. Why are you so cautious with him? Looking at the three. The three of them tensed and nodded. Finn lifted his shirt, revealing a large scar on his chest. Riveria pointed at her back, and Aiz immediately knew she was talking about a scar she had on her and Gareth. He pointed at his prosthetic arm, surprising Aiz. Finn. One day in a meeting with the goddess Freya, our goddess had the brilliant idea of indirectly insulting Freya, and Kuryusagi, who was her companion, realized the insult, immediately told Freya, and we had a confrontation, sighing. Riveria. The three of us against him, depressed. Aiz. They won, right? Confused. Aerith. Yes, but as you can see we didn't come out unscathed, showing his artificial arm. Aiz. But you are level 6 just like him, between the three of you should have overwhelmed him, surprised. Finn. It would be like that if it weren't for something, you forget that he is known as the fastest, his speed easily overwhelmed us, and most of the fight we ended up being beaten. When we were close to hitting him, his skill and agility allowed him to dodge all of our attacks. He pierced me with his side, he gave Riveria a powerful cut on the back, and he cut Gareth's arm. In the end we won more by luck than anything else, sighing. Aerith. That was when he had barely reached level 6, now that he's at the pinnacle of power at level 6, he can surely defeat the three of us, calmly. Aiz. Pinnacle of power. Riveria. It is believed to be close to reaching level 7. At the top of Babel, you could see a beautiful silver-haired goddess drinking from her glass of wine, waiting patiently on her throne, while she looked around bored, searching for something to entertain her. Boom. Belle Hull. Freya, my order. Freya jumped from her seat into Belle's arms and hugged him affectionately, curling up like a cat eagerly awaiting its owner. Belle. Hello Freya-sama, smiling happily. Freya. My order. My order. Cuddling up, I've been waiting for you, burying Belle's head in her breasts. Belle. Sorry for the delay Freya-sama, the expedition took longer than planned, smiling. Freya smiled sweetly and then looked at Otter who was walking sighing when he saw the door destroyed by Belle's kick. Otter. You should open the door like a normal person, we look at Belle, rabid. Belle growling, it's part of my style, smiling. Freya. Did anything else happen on your expedition? Looking at Otter. Otter. Belle saved the doll princess, expressionless. Freya. Oh. Smiling, may I ask why? You're not planning on cheating on me again, are you? Pinching him. Belle. No, I just wanted a favor, laughing stupidly. Freya. I hope so, pouts. Belle. By the way, let's update my status. Happy. Freya. Okay, lie down, leaving Belle. Belle nodded and took off his armor and shirt to the delight of Freya who seemed to devour him with her gaze. Freya. Okay, let's update your status, smiling. Oh. You're close to leveling up, Belle, smiling proudly. Belle. Perfect, smiling childishly. Freya. Here, giving him her status sheet. Status bellcranel. Adventurer level 6. Family Freya. Statistics. Strength 0930A. Resistance 0912A. Skill 0966A. Agility 1409 SSSS. Magic 0730C. Total 4951. Universal power 19,951. Magic. Halem Veil equals super short electric element enchantment magic that covers the user in electricity. Electricity can be launched in all directions by chanting distal, chant. Anger, wrath the sky, stolen. Firebolt equals super short chant magic that shoots a fire beam, chant equals no chant. Arc Roar equals short chant magic that releases a wave of darkness. It is spirit of darkness magic, chant equals run wild, darkness. Devour the light in the peace of the night. Your envoy begs you, shade. Incarnation of darkness. Queen of shadows, stolen. Satan version equals super short chant magic that hits enemies with sound blocks. Lugio can also explode magic power by chanting, gospel chant. Stolen. Usko Nori equals allows the user to materialize a weapon by turning the wind into a sword. They can also create an explosion by chanting Tuvelo, chant equals become a sword, steel-hearted devotee, stolen. Skills. Passion for killing equals increases the user's skills after a kill chain, works with monsters and humans alike. The more consecutive kills within a time limit of 3 seconds, the faster and more skill they gain with each kill. Psycho Fun equals increases all of the user's physical abilities when in a state of extreme dementia. Owl equals exponentially increases the user's tracking and dexterity at night, also giving clearer and brighter vision in dark places or at night. Sadistic equals increases the pain of victims when torturing them physically or mentally. Brave Raider equals allows the user to steal a spell from an opponent they have previously killed or a corpse. Intimidation equals giving a powerful battle roar the user is able to intimidate opponents weaker than him. It can even work on stronger enemies if the skill luck decides so. Skills acquired. Freya's Blessing equals gives the user an ability of the goddess Freya enchanted, A. Luck equals divine protection that literally gives the user luck, C. Hunter equals increases the user's strength and ease of killing monsters they are fighting before, B. Escape equals increases the user's speed when fleeing, G. Abnormal resistance equals gives great resistance and negates the effect of foreign substances such as poison, B. Spiritual healing equals automatic mind regeneration. Begins to regenerate the mind at a slow rate after using magic, C. Belle gave an innocent and happy smile and then hugged Freya who was surprised. Freya. Wow. Smiling flirtatiously, Ara. The bunny is excited, sticking her breasts to Belle. Belle. Oh. But look at the time, I have to show up with Rose or she'll get angry, leaving Freya, bye. Running. Freya. My order. Extending her hand. Belle rose Chai-Ian. Belle happily entered the guild and was greeted by a powerful blow to the chest that didn't even faze him. In front of him was a beautiful beast man with red hair and wolf ears who looked at him with indifference and at the same time with relief. Rose. I see you're fine Belle, smiling slightly. Belle. I promised you I'd always come back alive to your arms, didn't I? Smiling. Rose. Yes, but always with wounds, looking at her right arm, how the hell did you get that? Raising an eyebrow. Belle. Oh. A viola wrapped one of its vines around my arm. It almost destroyed it, looking at his right arm which was sewn with red thread in circles up to his finger. Belle. By the way, Rose-chan, smiling, tell me, don't you have any candy? Childish. Rose. You will be, sighing, taking something from between her breasts. Belle smiled at the sight of a chocolate bar and quickly ate it. Belle. Here's my status sheet, giving him the chibi sheet. Rose. Very well, now Belle, approaching him. Belle smiled as Rose placed a soft kiss on his head and gave him a motherly smile. Rose. Take care, smiling. Belle hi. Military pose. Belle was walking through the streets of Horario Infantil. He no longer had his intimidating armor on, now he was wearing strange clothes, he had black pants, a slightly pink-white shirt and instead of shoes, red slippers. NT. Like that, and also with the I don't remember what those blue and purple things that Uzo carries are called, and yes, that scythe is his weapon. People would either greet him or move out of his way, out of the entire family, Freya Belle was the only one kind enough to return a greeting or start a little chat. Belle. Hello. Greeting a lady, could I have the usual, please? Smiling. Woman. A dozen Jug American, right Belle-sama? Smiling. Belle hi thank you very much, smiling. Belle received his bag full of Jug American and grabbed one of them and started eating it happily. Belle. Leave it in. Woman. On Otter-sama's account, right? Laughing lightly. Belle. Yes. Smiling. Belle thanked the lady and walked away with his head in the clouds. Belle. Doll princess thinking, I think I'll go humiliate Loki, smiling. Loki. I see, sighing, so they met him, would be. Riveria. Only Aiz, apparently he saved her from certain death, it would be. Loki. If that's so, I have to thank you, depressed. The three of them. Loki. Aiz is my favorite daughter, so if I save her from certain death, then I should thank her properly, by going to get something. Then. What? Suspicious. Loki. Simple, depressed. Loki showed a bottle of soma that looked extremely expensive. Loki. He loves alcohol, even among gods his great resistance is well known, looking at the bottle, goodbye my beloved soma, hugging her. Finn. Will he really come for a reward or will you go too? Boom. Hello I'm bellcranel, senior executive of the Freya family, it's a pleasure. Everyone looked in surprise at Belle who had literally burst into the room. Finn. Kuryusagi, serious. Belle. Finn. Smiling, how's your chest? Smiling. Finn Belle, serious. Riveria. Hello again Belle, calm. Belle. Oh. Riveria-chan, how are you? Smiling. Riveria Belle, bowing. Everyone. Huh. Surprised. Riveria. Thank you for saving Aiz, bowing. Belle. Oh. Smiling, it was nothing, anyway, looking at Loki. Loki. Yes, going towards him, take it, giving him the soma. Belle. Soma. Happy, thanks Lakita, hugging her neck. Loki. Don't talk to me so confidently, grumbling. Belle hi, smiling. Belle left Loki and looked contentedly at the bottle of soma, admiring it, until. Loki, update my status. Everyone turned their gaze and saw Aiz enter through the door destroyed by Belle's kick. Aiz too, looking at Belle. Belle. Hello. Smiling. Aiz. What are you doing here? Hint. Suggesting the handle of his sword. Is this how you thank me? What a bad girl. Aiz opened her eyes in shock and turned back, attempting a lunge that was easily stopped. I look at Belle who was behind her smiling innocently. Aiz. How? Surprised. Belle had a strange knife in his hand which deflected the attack of his sword. Belle. Anyway, I'll see you soon, I already have what I want, smiling. Aiz esp. Aiz tried to speak, but Belle was simply no longer there. He had already left a second ago. Aiz. He's fast, surprised, so that's the fastest adventurer in the world. Looking at everyone. Loki. Leave the crazy one aside, smiling, you want me to update your status, right? Smiling. Aiz nodded and went with Loki to his room. Aiz. A question, looking at Loki out of the corner of her eye. Loki updating his status. Aiz. Why do they mistake Belle-san for a boy? Loki. Huh. Aiz. She's a girl, right? Looking at Loki. Loki. Hee ha 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 ha. Laughing out loud, he looks like a girl because of his appearance and acting a little feminine, but he is 100% boy, smiling, although you are not the only one to confuse him with a girl, leaving Aiz, giving him his status sheet, you are growing very fast Aiz tan, smiling. Aiz held up her status sheet and smiled at the clear changes from the previous one. Aiz. I have to go train, getting up goodbye. Loki. Wait Aiz tan. Boom. With Aiz. Aiz was walking through the halls of the Twilight Mansion with an expressionless face until an image of a white-haired man extending his hand came to mind. Are you okay? Aiz. Yes I am, smiling slightly. Aiz continued walking without realizing that she was followed by two Amazon sisters who saw her smile. NT by the way, Belle is 16 and Aiz is 14. Theiona. Aiz. Smiling, I've never seen you smile before. Is he a man? Happy. Aiz. That's true, why that smile? Smiling. Behind both appeared an embarrassed and shy elf. Lefiya Aiz-san, she looks good smiling, shy. Aiz looked at her three friends, Theiona and Tien Hyrule, both level 3 close to level 4, and Lefiya level 2. Aiz. Hello, returning to her expressionless face. Theiona. Ah, don't stop smiling, pout. Aiz tried to smile but could only make a strange face. Tien. Ah. You better think about what you were thinking before, smiling nervously. Aiz thought about Belle again, only now he was giving her a slight smile, and her cheeks heated up. Theiona Kaya. She's blushing, happy in a dime, is it because of a man? Smiling. Tien. Yes. Or why are you smiling? Smiling. Lefiya Aiz-san, she will never. Aiz hi, it's Belle, chibi. Theiona Tien oh. Looking at Aiz with a sparkle in her eyes. Lefiya ah. In shock. Lefiya felt her heart shatter into 1,000 pieces at Aiz's words. Tien. And who is it? Smiling mischievously. Theiona. Yes, yes. Tell us who it is, smiling. Aiz bellcranel, looking at them, Kuryusagi. Both. Kuryusagi. In shock. Theiona. Would you fall in love with someone from a rival family? Shaking her. Tien. Isn't that Freya's famous son? Doubtful. Lefiya. Huh. I don't know him, confused. Theiona. Haven't you heard of the famous Kuryusagi, surprised. Lefiya. And no, embarrassed. Tien. Kuryusagi is a high executive of the Freya family, also known as the fastest adventurer of all. He is currently the most powerful level 6 in existence, dramatic. Lefiya. Don't exaggerate either, Tien-san, laughing a little. Theiona. It's not a joke, it would be. Everyone was surprised to see Theiona so serious. Theiona. He is also considered a hero on Daedalus Street. Every night he goes out to patrol Daedalus. If he finds someone bad he simply eliminates him. They say he has great contempt for murderers and rapists who simply seek the best for themselves. Although it is a rumor he is the one who knows Daedalus Street best, there is no corner that he does not know about him. In Daedalus he is known as the rabbit god, there is even a statue in his name, Chibi. I have gone to leave flowers at the statue, smiling. Tien. What are you doing? Upset. Theiona. What's wrong? I even got lost on Daedalus Street once and he helped me get out, smiling stupidly. Tien. Theiona. Shaking it. Theiona. Ha ha ha, laughing. Lefiya. The most powerful level 6. Amazed. Theiona. Yes, smiling, he has a childlike attitude as well as a feminine appearance, his skin and hair are white as snow, and he has ruby red eyes, cheerful, he is really strong. I challenged him to a fight and he beat me up, laughing. Lefiya. Surprised. Tien. What did you do, you idiot? Shaking her. Theiona. Ha 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 ha, laughing. Flashback. A certain Amazon was standing in front of a white-haired man who looked at her amusedly. Theiona. Here I go. Theiona rushed at Belle and tried to hit him in the face. Something that Belle easily stopped with his hand. Theiona was about to prepare to attack him, but before she even moved she was already lying on the ground with her stomach in knots, courtesy of Belle. Belle. You're strong, looking at his hand, but not the strongest I've fought against, smiling, Otter-senpai is much stronger, rubbing his chest. Theiona stood up as quickly as possible and started running towards Belle, who waited for her patiently. Once she was close to Belle she directed her fist towards his face. Belle smiled as he saw Theiona stop his attack out of nowhere and try to give him a leg sweep. Theiona smiled confidently at the thought that she had caught Belle. She was greatly surprised to see her kick stopped by Belle's foot, which seemed to make minimal effort at this. Theiona was about to move away if it weren't for a powerful blow to the face that knocked her down on the floor again. Before she could even moan in pain, a kick to the stomach took out the little air she had and threw her a few meters from the Belle. Theiona from the ground tried to kick Belle, who was already in front of her. But her kick was easily stopped by Belle, who kicked her in the face, which would have sent her flying if it weren't for the fact that Belle still had her in his grasp. Belle Nina, smiling, do you want to see something beautiful? Smiling sadistically. Theiona opened her eyes and spat out blood as 4 blades were already buried inside her in a matter of seconds. Belle. Can you still continue? Smiling mockingly. Theiona. Still, getting up with difficulty, I can, determined. Belle smiled sadistically and rushed towards Theiona, who was waiting for him ready for the second round. Then flashback. And that's how I ended up being beaten up by Kuryusagi, one day he would be mine, smiling affectionately. Tien. Don't tell me that, in shock. Theiona. Yes. I fell in love with him, laughing. An Amazon falls in love with people who defeat her. If they live up to her expectations, the infatuation increases, laughing. Just like you did with the captain. Plus, he lives up to my expectations, proud. Lefiya. Kuryusagi, thinking, did you say white-haired with red eyes? Thinking. Theiona. Yes, nodding. Lefiya. with a scythe and black armor. In shock. Theiona. Do you know him? Looking at Lefiya deeply. Lefiya. And not directly but legends tell, nervous. The 3. Legends. Aiz. I don't understand, confused. Lefiya. Well, where I lived before coming to Riveria there were small stories and legends about a white-haired woman with red eyes with a scythe. They described her as someone childish and sadistic, as well as being extremely fast. The stories of her deeds began when a strange dark elf arrived in town, saying he was from Riveria. He had the emblem of the Hermes family, so we had no reason to distrust. He only came to sell Riveria products to our town. And when one of us asked him about a story he began to tell about her, a deranged but at the same time kind damsel, the one in charge of protecting Daedalus from the shadows, even if she had to resort to murder to save someone. We nicknamed her Lady Killer, nostalgic. We used those stories a lot to scold the elven boys and girls when they misbehaved. We said that if they didn't behave, Lady Killer would come for them at night, smiling. Hein. What a scary story, poor traumatized children, looking at Lefiya. Lefiya. Well, it always worked when they misbehaved, looking away. Aiz. Kuryusagi the rabbit god Lady Killer, thinking. Hein. Oh right. He also had another nickname, didn't he? Thinking. Theiona. Yes. When she reached level 2 before she was changed when she reached level 4, if I am not mistaken, she was Courage Plus, smiling. Aiz. Crazy. Raising an eyebrow. Theiona. Haha, scratching her cheek, the gods are very mocking, so when they found out what Belle was like they didn't hesitate to laugh at him like many others and tried to give him a shameful nickname, although that nickname for a long time caused terror in many adventurers. He also has the record for leveling up the fastest. If it weren't for him, you would be the current record holder, looking at Aiz. Aiz. How long did it take? Looking at Theiona. Hein. It took almost 6 months to get to level 2, looking at Aiz. Aiz 6 months. Surprised. Lefiya. He's someone really powerful, right? Looking at everyone. Hein. Of course, he is the second strongest adventurer after all, sighing. First of all there is the only level 7 in Riveria, the King Otter, would be. Lefiya nodded, caring little about Otter. More important to her was Lady Killer. From the way Theiona and her stories told it, she sounded like someone surprising and powerful. Aiz had similar thoughts with Lefiya. As soon as the image of Belle protecting her came to her cheeks blushed slightly. Belle. Sorry, laughing foolishly. Freya. How dare you go on that board without my permission, annoyed. Belle. Gemenis I, childish, but they had soma wine, smiling looking at a vase with the soma insignia. Freya. I know you love to drink, but next time let me know, hitting him. Belle hi Freya sama, smiling. Freya. Well, I hope that's clear this time, sighing, now come, smiling flirtatiously, hug your mistress. Belle nodded without complaint and went to Freya's side, hugging her affectionately. Freya snuggled into Belle's chest and stayed that way for several minutes. How had they met? That was years ago, when Belle was 5 to be exact. At that time he was a slave who worked for his masters if they bought him. He was usually bought for street and illegal fights. Surprisingly both escaping and running made him one of the best fighters to such an extent that he managed to take all his skills to when he was level 1. At that time a family had him as a member to give him more rope and so they could enjoy a better show when he fought. In those days Belle had no purpose for living and his look was totally dead, although there was still a little sparkle in it, hoping that someone would rescue it someday. But the days passed and no one came, and just when I was about to lose hope she arrived. Ara. How did you end up like this? You have such a bright and pure soul, but that garbage stains it black. Your brilliance is almost non-existent, but it's still there, smiling. Belle, tiny and completely beaten, looked in front of him, seeing a beautiful woman with silver hair and violet eyes. Behind her a large, somewhat young Bose looked at him impassively. Freya. I will make you regain your shine, and then you will be my Ord, smiling, my dear Ord. Since that day Belle happily served Freya. She was his mistress, his mother, his lady, his everything. She was the one who gave him back the light, and he met many people, Alan and Anya Frummel. Although Alan seemed to repudiate him, he knew that he had a little affection for him, and Anya was the opposite. Anya did have a great affection for him, and whenever she could she showed it. She was like an older sister. Alan seemed or pretended to hate her, but it was the opposite. Once she almost hit him for having discovered that whenever he could he watched Anya from afar making sure she was okay. There was also my mom, she was like a mother. The beautiful Gullivers, her best friends, each of the Palom was different but funny and fun, although they were a little jealous of her for always having Freya's attention. It's not like Freya couldn't pay attention to all her children, after all she loved them, but let's say that Belle was in a higher position. There were also Hogni and other members of the family, and her best friend, Helm, or previously Comfort as Sir. Belle knew that she could be Freya sometimes, and Freya could be the former Sir, after all Freya told her. Belle and Helm had a difficult relationship, they could be considered lovers or friends with benefits, and with Freya it was the same, she loved Belle, and Helm being part of her in a certain way also made it something of Belle's. And that's how Belle had two lovers in some way, Helm was extremely serious unless she was with Belle, in that case she was very submissive and shy. Freya was extremely possessive but patient and loved to pamper Belle, especially giving him gifts, although Belle always politely rejected them and asked her to stop because he thought it was unfair to the other members of the family. One of those many gifts was his scythe Juzo, that was the name he had given it. It was made from the black sword of Udius, the boss of the 37th floor. Belle had risen to level 6 after defeating him alone, and as a consequence, thanks to his luck, he gave him the black sword of Adius, although he didn't know what to do with it, so he simply kept it as a trophy. He had heard that the Goinbu family could make it into a weapon, but it was incredibly expensive. And it was there that her beloved goddess picked her up and sent the Goinbu family to make her a scythe. They had melted and molded it to close her great supreme scythe Juzo. This one had a high magic conductor, so if he used magic he could easily imbue his weapon with it and use it for battle without damaging the weapon in the process, although it was extremely expensive. The scythe cost the same as Otter's great supreme sword, who upon hearing Belle's great feat, also faced Udius alone and defeated him, also obtaining the great black sword, and the Goinbu family also created a weapon from that sword, resulting in his great supreme sword, which cost almost 500 million, the same as Belle's scythe, which was considered almost indestructible and the most powerful weapon in her area. Although their goddess had to send them on several expeditions after that to recover the lost money, of course, a few months in the deep floors with several powerful members of the family is not something they could not fix. In 3 months they had already recovered from what was lost, although they had to be 24/7 at every moment collecting magic stones and drop items. Freya. What are you thinking about? Looking at him. Belle. Just when you picked me up, love, hugging her, you know, we have to go to sleep. Tomorrow I have to go visit my mom, smiling. Freya. Moo, I wanted to be with you and you pushed me away, pout. Belle. He's sorry Freya-sama, smiling childishly. Freya. Reward him with a kiss, looking at Belle. Belle laughed a little before approaching Freya and giving her a passionate kiss that made her shudder. Even while they were kissing, Freya began to rub her crotch with her thighs while she felt her clothes getting wet, and just when she was about to throw Belle to the bed, the door opened, revealing a beautiful grey-haired girl with her hair in such a way that it covered her right eye, leaving only her left eye visible, which was black. She had a strange headband with what looked like ears, as well as a tight dress which was slightly open at the top, revealing some of her black bra. Suddenly she dropped her serious expression into a cute pout and said out loud. Hellumo, horn Freya-sama. Pouting, Belle-sama is mine too. Hugging him. Belle didn't even flinch at having his head tucked between Helm's generous bust, while his arm was scorched and thrust between Freya's breasts. Freya. You are a level 3 adventurer and you can go with him to the dungeon. I spend less time with him, so he is mine, pulling him. Helm. I haven't seen him since the expedition either. Remember, you're lazy and you leave all the work to your dependents. He's mine. He has to sleep with me. Hugging Belle. Freya. No. Today she slept with me, she would satisfy only me, perverted. LMH, today is my turn. Pulling at Chibi. Freya. No. Me, Chibi. Belle was with a cat-like smile waiting to see which of the two won, so he could simply go to sleep with one of them. This was becoming normal, although he trembled slightly when he realized that both of them were nodding in confirmation and looking at him, one shy and the other perverted. Freya Belle-kun, flirtatious. Helm Belle-sama, shy. Both. Have you thought about a threesome? Hostess of Fertility, 02. Lemon skipped. Belle left Freya and she lay down tired in bed next to Helm, who was already fainted since Belle and Freya stopped using her. Freya on the other hand lay on her back breathing heavily and quickly fell asleep with a satisfied smile. Belle leaned back on the headboard tired and satisfied. He looked with a stupid smile at the image in front of him, two beautiful women completely naked, while from their intimacy came out a white liquid with which he had filled them. Belle lay down between the two women who instinctively hugged him and covered the three of them. Belle. Good night, mumbling. NT. I disgust myself. But I do it for you. Belle was walking quietly through the streets of Riveria, wearing his usual outfit, Juzos, with only one destination in mind. Belle. I asked how they are, I forgot to visit my sensei and the others, laughing, and with the expedition that time was extended, how upset are they? I'll go find out, smiling playfully. Belle, despite his animated face, felt a chill run down his spine. He could be a sadist and a madman, but an angry woman could be much worse. That was something he learned the hard way from my mom and his Aunt Alfea. Elsewhere. In a bar well known throughout the world, where several beauties of different races were gathered, a bored brown-haired catgirl can be seen at the entrance of the bar slacking off. Anya. How boring, Naya, closing her eyes. Anya couldn't speak much when someone blew in her ear and she blushed. Anya? Who's there? Naya, scratching at nothing. Anya froze when she saw Belle standing a little away from her, laughing stupidly amused while she had her hair standing on end and a devilish aura. Belle. Hello Anya, playful. Anya breathed a sigh of relief and said. Anya. Ah, it's just you, Belle, it's you. Running towards him. Belle dodged Anya with relative ease, who fell face down on the floor. Belle. A cat falling on its face. That's new, smiling. Anya. Naya. Hugging him, I caught you, smiling playfully. Belle. You caught me, raising his hands, now let me see my mom please, looking at Anya. Anya. Yeah, I don't know if that's a good idea, sweating. Belle. Tilts his head innocently. Belle was going to say something to Anya if it weren't for the screams they heard inside the tavern. Damn brat. She had to leave just when sales season arrived. She's taking me. Belle had a little bit of excitement when he heard Mamma Mia's screams. It was true, at this time of year for some reason the clientele increased too much and Mamma Mia gave him a temporary job in the kitchen where he helped little May who had praised his cooking skills, although he also helped as a waiter attending the bar. Belle opened the door casually and waved playfully. Belle. Who'll? Punch. Belle couldn't continue when a greenish blonde elf girl grabbed him by the collar of his shirt and pulled him quickly. Belle didn't know why until Mamma Mia noticed where he was before hitting the floor with a force comparable to Otter's. Belle. Ah, scratching the back of his neck, thank you very much Ryu-chan, rubbing his head. Ryu blushed slightly and let his savior continue to caress his head affectionately. But her moment was interrupted when Mamma Mia in berserk mode with red eyes looked at Belle. Mommy? You. Pointing at him, damn traitor bunny. Lunging forward. Belle had to dodge a blow from Mia with great speed while carrying a blushing Ryu in his arms. Belle. It's also a pleasure to see you, my senpai, smiling animatedly. My mom. Bastard. Lunging forward. Belle. Tee-hee, sticking out his tongue innocently. My mom. Ah. Breed American later. Belle was sitting in front of Mamma Mia in a green waiter's suit just like the girl's only for a man. My mom. Well, fortunately for your health you arrived at a good time, we still have many sales, and curiously, the female audience has also increased, looking at Belle, so we need our rabbit Don Juan to make money, understood, raising an eyebrow. Belle hi, like a little soldier, but. My mom. I know, you'll have time for that going to the kitchen, now to work. Everyone. Hi my mama. Belle was happily working cooking while telling one of his many anecdotes to May. Who was May? A catgirl with brown hair and green eyes, she was short in fact, Belle swore she had the same average height as the Palom, she was adorable at first glance since she had to use a stool to cook properly but never make fun of her height. NT. I don't know exactly how old May is, so if someone could tell me, I'd be grateful. For now, let's just say she's older than she looks, but it's not something to exaggerate about. May. And what are you going to do with that thing? Looking at something in the back of the kitchen. Belle hum. Turning his gaze. Belle and Mai stopped cooking and both looked at where an egg was cooked, a monster egg. Belle. Who knows, funny. May. You know that if that thing is born here, I'll use it as my assistant, right? Looking at Belle. Belle. Don't worry, he'll be born when he's ready and that's when I'm here, smiling. May. Still, how the hell did you get it? Stressed, that thing is a unique item. It's extremely rare for someone to get it. In fact, according to the guild, only 71 people have gotten it in all of history, looking at the egg. The egg was white with some small red lines, it wasn't very big, so May assumed it was a companion egg instead of a mount egg. Although he meant companion egg and saddle egg. Easy. Pets are special creatures that accompany adventurers and fulfill a specific function. These are only obtained in the dungeon. When you kill a monster, there is a 1/100,000,000 chance that it will drop a pet egg, so they are very rare. Pet eggs can be sold for up to 400 million valis. In addition, these creatures are also given the fauna of the god the adventurer serves, since some of these can also level up, so they count as another member of the family. There were two kinds of them, companion and mount. The mounts were simply what their name indicated, a monster over 1.50, but less than 3.10 meters that could be used as a horse by its master, although it could also be used to collect and/or attack in some cases. And the company ones had different random versions. Collector. Ideal for a magician, this type is born with an ability with which it can collect mana from its environment and gather it like a battery, so when it is less than 2 meters from its master, it can automatically pass mana to me to launch magical attacks without getting tired. Attack. As its name indicates, these can fight alongside their master and are one of the few that can have a level and statistics, the most that one has managed to reach is level 3 with statistics of 8,000. Sensory. They have the radar ability which allows them to telepathically join with their master and have an exact mapping around a radius of 100 meters. As extra information, it allows you to know the location of enemies, although it only worked with monsters and humans without fauna. Defensive. Pets with a wall ability that allows them to create barriers around their master. These can also level up, and as their level increases, the resistance and power of their barriers as well. The strongest defensive pet was capable of making a barrier that could withstand 3 tons, although it is almost useless against magical attacks that are shock, certainly, as a disadvantage. If it was more than 3 meters away it could fail. And if it was more than 10 meters away it was practically useless. And last but not least. Special cases. In fact, only 8 pets are known to have this case, pets with 2 abilities that they can use, some combine perfectly while others were very unbalanced. May. And. Looking at Belle, what monster is it? Curious. L.A. Smiling, of an Almrage, looking into nothingness. May. PFF ha 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 ha. Throwing herself on the ground. Belle pulled a double-edged black-handled white knife from his apron and pointed it at May. Belle. Tell me, May, do you want to die? Smiling. May. Yeah, sorry, holding back laughter. Who would have thought you'd catch one of your kind? Belle, mockingly, how do you see him seeing you? Like a mommy rabbit. You'll have to make a burrow and give him carrots, taking one out of a drawer. Belle. Shut up, pointing to his side that was lying on a shelf. May. It stopped, sighing, so why don't you sell it? That thing costs a fortune, looking at the egg. Belle. My goddess has never seen one and wanted you to see it, then I'll sell it, back to cooking. May also went back to cooking, looking anxiously at the egg that was beginning to move slightly. We can see a certain golden-haired swordswoman walking through the streets of Riveria, thinking deeply about something, or someone. An image of a white-haired adventurer with a scythe came to her mind, and she blushed slightly. Aiz. I have to meet him, I need power, walking through the dark streets. Elsewhere. Belle was walking carefree through the streets of Riveria towards the Daedalus district. He had to go out on patrol again and see that everything was in order. But as he walked through the dark streets of Riveria, he didn't expect to meet a swordswoman a few centimeters smaller than him who looked very thoughtful while eating a chibi-shaped jag-American. But Aiz didn't notice Belle's presence, who came up with a way to make fun of her. Her smile widened when she saw that, far from them, a werewolf was running, hysterically looking for someone. Belle opened his arms as if he were going to receive a hug. His smile increased when he saw how a little far from them the werewolf came running, annoyed and shouting nonsense that could barely be heard just as Aiz ignored it. Aiz remained lost in her world and literally walked into Belle's open arms. Aiz, and if. Aiz couldn't keep thinking when she crashed into someone's chest and strong but warm arms wrapped her in a soft embrace. Belle. Hello, happy. Aiz stood in shock for a moment before looking up and seeing her hero give her a charming smile as he looked straight at her with those exotic and unique ruby eyes. Aiz T2, nervous. Belle smiled amusedly at Aiz's adorable expression before looking out of the corner of his eye at the werewolf. That. Hey you. Pointing at him, leave Aiz alone, annoyed. Belle looked at him for a few seconds before smiling kindly, a kindness that hid his true self, which smiled sadistically. He would never dare to physically torture an innocent person, but that did not stop him from breaking the heart of one of the many admirers of the doll princess. Belle. Don't worry, I'm her boyfriend, smiling innocently. Ed was shocked by that comment. Did he hear correctly? He must have heard wrong, right? No. His sharp ear had heard perfectly. This had to be a joke, right? But on the other hand, he had seen Aiz walk straight into his arms. She had never done this with anyone, not even Riveria, who was like a mother to him. That's brain processed the information as best it could, while Aiz's was no better. She was still in shock, while Mini Aiz held her cheeks blushing, imagining herself with a certain mocking white-haired man. Aiz's expressionless face was easily broken by Belle, and instantly a blush appeared on her cheeks. Aiz looked away from Belle's and looked at the ground embarrassed. Despite that, she didn't move away from the hug, on the contrary, she seemed to snuggle further into the air. Something that Bet noticed and only increased his shock. That. It's a lie. You have to be lying. Pointing at him. In Belle's head, a dark version of himself began to laugh devilishly. Belle. Do you want me to prove it to you? Smiling kindly, well Aiz. Aiz reacted at the mention of her name and also turned her face to see her hero, although she got an unexpected surprise when he grabbed her chin and claimed her lips in a passionate kiss. Aiz stood still for a second. Despite being extremely innocent, she knew perfectly well that it was a kiss, and right now she was having not only one but also her first kiss. She didn't know how to react. Did she push him away? No, that idea was immediately dismissed from Aiz's head and she thought about kissing back, while Mini Aiz encouraged her to do so too. The problem is that since it was her first kiss, she didn't know how to do it well, so she just let Belle take absolute control. Belle smiled internally when he saw that he did not have the disapproval of the princess, who seemed to allow herself to be tamed, and even more so when he saw that Bette fell to her knees with her gaze darkened and in shock. Belle continued the passionate kiss for a few more seconds before slowly moving away from Aiz, who saw him excited and blushing. When Aiz regained consciousness, she pouted upon noticing that Belle had stopped kissing her, but it was a completely new sensation, and she loved it. She wanted to continue kissing her hero, the one she had longed to find, and the one her parents wanted her to find, although Aiz began to rub her thighs together blushing, while a strange sensation burned her intimacy to the point that she felt her panties begin to get wet. Aiz hugged Belle and also looked at her face pleadingly at Belle, who smiled slightly before passionately kissing Aiz again. Aiz shuddered from the passionate kiss and reciprocated it as best as her inexperienced lips could. Well, we have to go. I hope you keep it a secret. Vanguard, smiling mockingly. Belle carried a surprised princess in his arms before taking a big leap and leaving Bette's sight, where he slowly lay down on the floor, still in shock. Bette. It can't be, blank. That day something changed inside Bette, something broke. I have no title. Belle was running at high speed while moving away from a werewolf who was static thinking about what he had done wrong. While running, Belle carried in his arms a blushing sword princess who was still in shock while looking at Belle shyly, undoubtedly a very tender scene. That Belle didn't give a damn, he already had his goddess, so this was nothing. Belle kept running until he reached the top of a building and let Aiz get off his arms, although Aiz did so reluctantly while pouting a little. Belle. Well, there's your home, pointing ahead. Aiz also looked and it was true, right there next door was the Twilight Mansion. When she turned around she was confused to see that Belle was walking away with total tranquility into nowhere. Aiz. Don't you want to come in? Looking at him impatiently. Belle. Looking at her, no thanks, I have things to do, playing it down. Aiz. I see, disappointed. Belle looked at her for a second before smiling amusedly. His goddess had told him that if they could somehow control someone of high status from the Loki family, or at least have their support, it would be very beneficial for them, although it would also be beneficial for the Loki family, so they weren't taking advantage of them, it was more of a win-win. Belle. Hey princess, smiling. Aiz looked up and looked at Belle with a sparkle in her eyes. Belle. How about I train you sometime? What do you think? Smiling. Aiz nodded frantically to Belle's amusement, who thought about it for a moment before looking at her with a smile. Belle. Tomorrow at 8 AM at the area wall, I'll wait for you there. Belle waved goodbye and just as Aiz blinked he disappeared. Aiz let out a small sigh of love as she watched Mini Aiz walk in circles around her happily. Not only Mini Aiz was happy, but so was Big Aiz, and surprisingly, she was happy not because she was trained by one of the strongest adventurers in Aurario, but because Belle would train her. For a moment she forgot her revenge and walked to the Twilight Mansion happily. Belle knelt down in pain and smiled stupidly at the person in front of him. There was Otter with his fist extended and sighing wearily. Otter. Not only did you leave me your Jag American account, you also messed with the Loki family. Do you understand what will happen if rumors start that Killer Rabbit courted and fell in love with Doll Princess? Sighing. Hello Otter senpai, shaking his head, that's exactly what I want, smiling innocently. Otter raised an eyebrow in amusement. Usually, Belle's stupid and strange plans always benefited Freya's family. Of course, as long as they were well thought out. Although there were times when Belle did things without thinking and ended up with a terrible debt, as was often the case. To make matters worse, Freya didn't scold Belle, as she watched in amusement when she did her mischief, and her soul shone even brighter. Belle. Freya-sama asked us that one of the executives get the approval of someone from the Loki family, more exactly someone who has high influence, smiling, obviously the best would be Finn, but if Freya-sama tried to enchant him, he would realize it and try to kill her just before her charm works. Thanks to his instinct, Vanguard is ruled out. It is obvious that they hate him there, and the feeling is mutual, the Amazon sisters. One is already under my charm, so. Otter. Only Gareth Landrock, Riveria Ljos Alf and remain. Belle. Aiz Wallenstein, smiling, yes, don't worry though, Freya-sama will take care of Gareth, I'll take care of that Amazon, the princess, and the high elf, smiling. Otter. You know, despite your appearance, you are really a monster, expressionless. Belle. I know, mockingly. Otter. I just have one last question, seriously, why didn't you immediately charm the doll princess? Looking at him. Belle. Isn't it obvious? If she were to enchant me immediately everyone would realize that it was my fault or Freya's. No one besides you knows that the enchanted ability can be controlled, not even the other gods know. Everyone believes that if I use enchanted immediately all the women and some men would fall at my feet, and so it would be if I use the ability to all its splendor. But if it is little by little I can even make her crush real, and not just an obsession towards me, walking calmly, that can also work with Riveria, but with her, I will have to be more cautious. Otter just nodded as he looked at Belle who was walking in front of him, unable to help it. A slight proud smile appeared on Otter's lips before he wiped it away and walked towards his goddess's tower to take care of her, while Belle went somewhere else. Please ah. A horrendous scream was heard in one of the many streets of the Daedalus district. This scream came from a black-haired catman who was crying desperately. The man fell to the stone floor and began to crawl towards one of the alleys in terror. He had made the worst mistake of his life. I'm trying to confront the most sadistic person on the planet. Tee. And also the most childish. The man stood still, and terror filled him completely as the floor filled with blood, his blood. Result of a wound in his chest made by a black scythe. That catman slowly turned his gaze looking at a dark figure in its entirety that smiled in an amused way. The only thing that could be seen was the slight purple glow that the blade of his scythe released and his blood-red pupils that seemed to shine in the dark night. Catman HGP please, trembling, I'll do whatever you want. Scared. Belle. He. Whatever you want. Smiling mockingly. HGE. Why yes. What do you want? Money. Slaves. Women. I'll give you anything you want. Smiling. The man thought he had saved his life, poor fool. Belle. Well, I want your head, smiling. HGA. Belle smiled amusedly and raised his hand which grabbed the man's severed head by its black cat ears. Belle gave a macabre smile and noticed how despite having his head cut off the man could still move his eyes and looked at him in terror as he began to cry. Belle. Tell me, how does it feel to know you're literally dead? Mockingly. Belle made the severed head look at the body lying on the ground headless as a large pool of blood was released. The head began to cry before its eyes lost their shine and it finally died. NT. What had happened, some readers will ask. I will answer them v. You see, when a person's head is cut off, they still have a little bit of consciousness, so the person can still see and think for a few moments before they finally die next to the body. That happened many times when people had their heads cut off by the guillotine. The severed heads, even after they were cut off, could still cry and in rare cases scream for a few short seconds. I'm not entirely sure about this since I read it a long time ago in some history and torture books, so correct me if I'm wrong, and even if it isn't like that, at least in this story it will be v. Well, thank you for your attention in reading this disturbing fact 3, now let's continue. Belle threw his head into the air before gripping his scythe tightly and slamming the head with the scythe, sending it flying. Belle watched amused as the head fell into a house with an open window and screams of terror began to be heard. Belle. Okay now, getting serious. Belle looked at the black cape that the man was wearing, it had a symbol, the symbol of Evilis. Belle. They started moving so soon. Why did they suddenly change their plans? They were supposed to start creating those plant things in a year, and in 2 years they would release them to wreak havoc on Daedalus Street, if I am not mistaken, in the monster fair in 2 years, but it seems it will be in the current one, clicking his tongue, and I wanted to walk with Freya Familia or Helm-chan, sighing, I didn't think they would take so much advantage to move while I was gone. I already expected it, but not to such an extent, annoyed, if this continues the same thing as 5 years ago will probably happen, sighing, the dark age well, duty calls, smiling. Belle suddenly stabbed his scythe into the ground before a powerful electric current surged through the ground and it shattered, revealing a sewer. Belle. Let's see who of that evilest trash will be my first victim, sadistic smile. Aiz was depressed, why? Simple, Belle hadn't arrived yet, he had promised to be here to train her at 8, although she had been here since 6, that's how excited she was just to see Belle. Aiz continued waiting until it was almost 9 o'clock, she was about to leave there totally depressed, thinking that Belle wouldn't come until. Hello. Her eyes regained their shine, and she suddenly turned her gaze at high speed, finding a white-haired woman walking towards her in the distance. Aiz started running towards Belle excitedly until she arrived right in front of him and stopped dead in her tracks. Aiz hello, nervous. Belle smiled foolishly before scratching the back of his neck and apologizing. Belle. Sorry I'm late, how long have you been waiting? Looking at her. Aiz. 3 hours, chibi. Belle. I see, and I'm Droplet, sorry for the delay, I had things to attend to, smiling innocently. An hour ago. Ah. The red-haired woman fell to the hard stone floor as she glared at the person in front of her. There was a white-haired man who watched amusedly as she dragged herself pathetically, since her legs were literally destroyed. She currently had the strength of a level 5, she was nowhere near being able to give Belle a good fight. Belle. Let me see, if I am not mistaken, you were Revis-chan, right? Smiling. Revis. Wretch, spitting blood, I won't tell you anything, smiling mockingly. Belle. You think so? There are thousands of ways to make you talk, and my specialty is torture, smiling sadistically, what can I do to you? I can destroy you mentally or physically, make you scream for mercy, while I make sure to destroy every little shred of sanity you have, but if I did that I would lose more than I would gain, smiling, you already saw what you are to Thanatos. You thought you were a special member that he couldn't replace, but you saw that it is not like that I threw you away like simple garbage and leave you at my mercy, mocking. Brevis. I swear I'll kill you, gritting his teeth. Belle. Yes, bored, well now I will proceed to make you my faithful right hand, okay. Caressing his cheek. Brevis. Let go en nuo. Squirming. Brevis began to breathe heavily while a blush adorned her cheeks and her heart began to beat faster, she knew it, she knew she was starting to be under the effects of charm no, she was already enchanted. Brevis beat Belle-sama. Breathing heavily. Belle. Oh. I didn't think it would work so easily, it really is a terrifying ability, smiling innocently, very well Revis-chan, taking out a healing potion, cheer up, I won't kill you, I will give you power, and you will help me protect Freya-sama, smiling. Belle opened the potion before pouring it on Revis, who didn't move and waited for her new master to give her orders. Belle. Good. Happy, now you can get up. Revis nodded before easily standing up and grabbing her weapon, Belle smiled when he saw her put it away and stood in front of her nervously. Belle. Good. Clapping, you know, there are many Evilis members left, how about you help me kill them? Smiling. Revis hi. Belle-sama, walking beside him. Belle looked at Revis's eyes and reminded him of a snake, in a way she was intimidating and adorable, mainly because Revis walked by his side nervously and blushed, that was the power of charm at full power. Well not really, if Belle had his ability at rank S, then he could even charm goddesses, for the moment he can only captivate them, but it's only a matter of time. Currently. Belle smiled amusedly as he recalled the events of an hour ago and stroked Aiza's head. Belle. Well, as an apology for being so late, how about we grab something to eat before training? I'll treat. Smiling. Aiz nodded adorably and started walking with Belle to the food stalls that had already opened half an hour ago. Although he was surprised when a drop of water fell on his face. Aiz also looked up and watched as the sky began to darken. Aiz. I think we should Fush. Aiz was surprised by the sound of something opening and looked at Belle who already had a black umbrella in his hand and was covering himself from the rain that began to fall rapidly. Belle. Don't ask where I got the umbrella from, smiling. Aiz nodding. Belle smiled flirtatiously before accidentally sticking to Aiz and using the umbrella as an excuse so that neither of them would get wet. Aiz obviously blushed but didn't say anything and let Belle stick to her. All this was seen by the people of Riveria who looked surprised, but among all of them one look stood out, a jealous and slightly annoyed look that came from the top of the Tower of Babel. Freya was moving and twisting in her armchair while cursing a certain jealous rabbit. First there had been that red-headed chick who seemed very attached to Belle, she even kissed him on his face. Belle obviously did nothing to stop her, but this was entertaining, that was something Freya regretted in the past and present, she herself made Belle a pervert to satisfy her in bed, and bringing Helm in was what broke the camel's back for Belle's perversion, despite the fact that he mainly only wanted her, that didn't stop him from having fun with girls whenever he wanted. She had literally expired and caught sleeping with several women, even the least expected fell for his rabbit charms. The worst thing is that in almost all the girls he fell in love with he had not used his charm ability, like 3 were the ones who fell in love with Belle, thanks to the enchanted ability including Revis, from then on the rest, Belle fell in love with without the need for that problematic ability, elves, amazons, half-elves, beast women, dark elves, paloms, dwarves, humans. Goddesses, they all fell for his natural charm. It didn't help that Helm didn't care about this or scold Belle, as long as he continued to pay more attention to her than to the others, and the truth is that it was like that since they constantly had dates, outings that ended in a passionate night. And she had to settle for masturbating while watching her rabbit buck several women as if he was in heat. She'd make sure to leave him dry when she got back. If. Freya licked her lips at the thought of a certain rabbit and his mini Belle, although there was nothing mini about her. With Belle. Belle was walking aimlessly next to Aiz who was confused and blushing since Belle was hugging her and sticking to her, and confused why Belle was ignoring each and every food stand and going to another more specific place, one that was becoming familiar to Aiz. They walked for a while longer until they finally reached a small stand and Aiz's eyes shone. Belle and Aiz, greeting kindly. Belle and Aiz arrived at the small stand that had a kind of roof that covered the stand from the rain. Aiz and Belle went under the roof and closed the umbrella. Belle. Anna. I know, smiling, the same as always, starting to cook. Aiz, you like ja. Aiz. Another order like this please, chibi. Hi, smiling. Belle. Do you like it? Smiling. Aiz nodded repeatedly, happily making Belle laugh. Belle. Well, we have something in common, smiling. Oh. Look at a cat, walking. Aiz received her Jag-American and also took Belle's to give it to him, but when she turned around, she almost threw them away when she saw an adorable scene. Aiz blushed and was tempted to stroke Belle's white hair, as if she were a bunny or a kitten like the one she was playing with. Belle continued to pet the cat before it quietly walked away, and Belle let it go. Belle. Oh. Looking at her, the Jag-American is ready, smiling. Aiz blinked in surprise when she only had one Jag-American in her hand, and the other one was already being eaten by Belle with complete peace of mind. Aiz simply followed his example and began to eat the Jag-American with complete peace of mind. Aiz fell to the ground dry for one time in the entire training. Although it had lasted only 13 seconds. Belle was in front of her without his large scythe, instead he had several white knives that he used to fight her. Belle. I see what your problem is, thinking, you lack a lot of technique, walking towards the top, plus I held back too much, your technique and endurance are terrible, but your agility and skill are good. Did he faint? Well, sleepy ass has no owner. Leaving aside Belle's perversions, Belle sank on the floor calmly before lifting Aiz's head and placing it on his lap, stroking her hair. Belle. How smooth, smiling, for some reason I feel like I've changed the recipe for something, thinking. Aiz moving. Belle watched with attention and curiosity as Aiz moved in her sleep while snuggling into his thighs. Aiz. Dad, whispering in her sleep. Belle. Hey airhead, shaking Aiz's head, we have to train, chibi. Aiz slowly opened her eyes and looked at Belle before nodding and standing up. I was there when Aiz realized something. Aiz. Was it on her thighs? Blushing. Belle. Hey Aiz, why is your style so aggressive? Looking at her. Aiz tilts head. Belle. The reason why only that weapon, pointing to Desperate, is able to withstand your strength is because of your aggressive fighting style. You don't pay much attention to protecting yourself while you're in a fight, so you let the enemies attack you and damage you in exchange for doing double damage to them. It's a good strategy if you're going to fight against a single opponent faster than you, but in a battle against many that technique has many problems. Although it also has to do with the fact that you don't have experience with humans, thinking. Aiz. Experience with humans. Belle. Look, your fighting style is good and effective against monsters, in fact I think that over time in a few years your style will easily be able to surpass mine and even others, but your style against people is very basic. If you were to fight against an adventurer of your same level, who had great skill as a swordsman or any other weapon you would lose easily, maybe even against someone a level lower than you, taking out his knives. Aiz. And how do I improve that? Looking at Belle expectantly. Belle. Isn't it obvious? Training, pointing his knife at her, come with everything, smiling. Aiz unsheathed Desperate and prepared to attack her rival, without being able to avoid it. Aiz trembled slightly when she saw Belle's expressionless face, it reminded her a lot of a certain silver-haired woman with heterochromia who beat her mercilessly in the past. Belle, okay, let's get started. Belle was walking towards the fertility hostess very calmly after beating Aiz countless times and giving her a lap pillow. It was strangely calming. Belle would later try it with someone else to see if it had the same effect, but leaving that aside, Belle entered the fertility hostess and got ready to work. While Belle was putting on the mantle, a small egg began to crack. Ahahahaha. Belle was laughing out loud at the ancient fertility story, the reason. The little Almrich who attacked May as if there was no tomorrow. The funniest thing was watching May run away like a scared cat with its hair standing on end and trying to scratch the Almrich. What had happened? Simple, the egg hatched, and there was no one in the kitchen, no one besides Belle who was quietly cleaning the dishes until he felt something burning his foot. She looked down calmly and smiled as she watched a small Almrich burn her foot. Belle grabbed the Almrich, which let him carry it, and he took it in one of his arms while he turned off the water tap. Belle. Wow, smiling, you're more adorable than I thought, laughing a little. Hey Belle. Belle turned towards the kitchen door where a small, annoyed cat girl entered. May. Belle. Angry, and those dishes, Naya. Are they for today? Giving her a sniff. Belle was about to say something if it weren't for why the Almrich growled and started attacking May wildly, and May. Well, her hair and tail twitched before she climbed onto one of the kitchen tables and started running on all fours in the same way that the Almrich started chasing her, making a mess in the kitchen. All in front of Belle, who was dying of laughter in the kitchen. Mommy. So, mockingly, now you're a mommy bunny? Smiling. Belle. If what you say, looking at the Almrich. Where was the Almrich? Simple. How beautiful. It's adorable, Naya. Looks like Belle-kun. Sir, what are you thinking, Naya? It's equal to Cranel-sama. Belle looked with a drop of an eye as all the girls were looking at the tame Almrich, all except my mom who cared little and May who seemed to get along badly with the Almrich. May. Don't let that thing into my kitchen. Evil aura. Belle. Yes, bored. Hi-oo. Belle started laughing when he saw how the girls started fighting over going to the Almridge, calling him Mini Belle. Although in the end the one who won was Ryu, who hugged the rabbit gently while smiling adorably. Belle. Damn, me and my fetish for blonde elves, shaking his head, are simply irresistible, shoulders raised. My mom. Put aside your perversions, sighing, and what name will you give him, looking at him giving him a tea. Belle. Huh. I was thinking of selling it after showing it to Freya-sama, drinking tea. Mommy. You're a monster, Rick. L.A. My mom. Nothing but knowing Freya, she'll probably get attached to the rabbit, so she'll probably order you to keep it. I recommend you think of a name now, quietly cleaning a glass. L. Good point, thinking, well then it will be Yuko, smiling stupidly. My mom. What a bad name, stick face, I feel sorry for that Almridge, sighing. L. I don't even know how to find out its gender, and I don't know how to name it, looking at the Almridge. Mom. Okay, then it will be Yuki, crossing her arms. L. Huh. But I said that. My mom. My instinct tells me it's a girl, so it must be Yuki, and that's it, end of discussion, firm. L. You just say it's a girl just so she won't be called Yuko, right? Mommy. I said, out of the question, dark aura. L. Yes. Belle was in the dark streets of Riveria, more exactly in Daedalus Street. He was hidden in the shadows with a sinister smile while spying on a conversation. Okay, then it's a deal. Don't take my hand with such confidence, Thanatos. Oh don't worry, it's just a courtesy Ishtar. Belle smiled as he looked at both hidden gods before he started writing everything down in a notebook. Shall we kill them, Belle-sama? Belle looked to his side and smiled at his companion. A redeed with strange yet charming snake eyes that Belle liked. Belle. No, leave them, we can follow them and get more information, smiling. Brevis nodded calmly and closed his eyes to rest. Belle followed his example, listening carefully to what both gods were saying until. Thanatos. You know, those moans may be fake, but they're exciting. Oh? It's just to make men feel more manly. That's bad, I'll make sure you moan for real. Ah. Belle covered the ears of a blushing Revis while he listened with annoyance to the moans of both gods, who seemed to have exhibitionist tendencies. Asia, he had also had relationships in broad daylight in non-private places, such as under a bridge, in a bathroom, a dark alley, the roof of a house, and even in the dungeon, with different girls, even elves. In fact, Belle had done an experiment and discovered that most elves feel more aroused when they know they can be easily caught in the act. Yep, Belle had done that experiment with several elves he courted in a single day. No doubt bellcranel is an idol for many. But that was the point, he was bellcranel. If they were to discover him he would easily disappear with his speed, and that's it, no one would believe the one who caught them, but they were gods who could not use their powers, so they could not avoid misunderstandings, even worse than Thanatos who is from Evilis, nor that they were the ones to be able to escape. But leaving that aside, Belle was confused by a strange smell of strawberries that suddenly reached her and looked at Revis with a drop of sweat. She had a blush on her cheeks and could notice how Revis was having difficulty holding back the urge to do something inappropriate in front of her in the same way as the exhibitionists below. Belle. It's going to be a long night, sighing. Revis. What are we going to do? Looking at Belle. Belle. You will return to the Folkvanger and deliver this, giving him all the information you stole, and I have people to torture, smiling, see you. Kissing his cheek. Belle walked away calmly while behind him he saw Revis with a small pink tint on his cheeks before he left for the Folkvanger. Belle. Well now, smiling, let the massacre begin. Happy. Ah. Where is? Don't blink. Slash. New. Ah. Thousands and thousands of screams were heard in one place, a room dimly lit by torches and full of people in black robes. They all fell dead, their throats cut, their guts ripped out and tortured. The walls were covered in blood, and there in the center of everyone smiling with pleasure was a white-haired man covered in blood while holding a person by the neck. Belle. We meet again, Valletta, smiling. Valletta tried to hit Belle, but it was useless, she didn't have the strength to move, much less hit him. Out of nowhere, she spat out blood and opened her eyes in shock, the reason. 6 knives that were stuck in his stomach, opening his insides with terrifying ease. Belle smiled amusedly before slowly lowering his hand and inserting it into Valletta's stomach, pulling out her intestines and showing them to the shocked Valletta. Belle. Tell me, do you like your interior? Smiling. Valletta tried everything to free herself, but it was useless, she could do nothing against Belle, who released her intestines and let them fall to the ground like simple garbage. Valletta gasped, the pain of having her intestines ripped out and her entire insides moved was indescribable. Belle got bored and threw Valletta's body away from him. Valletta spat out blood as the floor was stained with his blood from his open stomach. Belle. Well, I think I'll finish this now. And? Bell turned his gaze and looked bored at a man with dark grey hair and electric blue eyes who tried to stab him. Bell hummed Gospel Satanas Virion. Bell was enveloped in a light cove of mana before it exploded and threw all the lifeless bodies of Evilis's members into the air. Cookie held on like a sword while holding back the screams of pain that he wanted to let out. But his eyes widened in shock when an arm fell in front of him. I look ahead and there he was, the dangerous man with several knives stuck in his body and without an arm. The man fell to the ground while writhing in pain and vomiting blood. Bell yer days, mockingly, who do we have here? If I'm not mistaken, you're Roger, aren't you? Smiling. Roger damn, trying to get up. Bell. Hey don't talk to me like that. Slash. Ah. Valletta closed her eyes and began to tremble with fear and helplessness. Valletta. Please stop, sobbing. Bell. Oh. But it's so funny, smiling, so cry more, let me see your stupid face full of tears. Valletta began to tremble harder, knowing that Bell hated her. After all, she was the one mainly responsible for her only family dying, the woman from whom Bell stole the magic he had just used. Althea Hikari, the monster of talent. Valletta remembered him, even after he betrayed her and they made a perfect plan to kill her. They had thousands of casualties. It turned out that Althea had a secret magic that she never revealed, Genos Angelus, a magic that gave her the power to explode a level 5 adventurer with just one hit, literally. Not only that, but it destroyed the entire 46th floor where they had ambushed her. Even the dungeon created a juggernaut due to the terrible excessive damage. But in the same way as Evilis's soldiers, the juggernaut died quickly from the fury of a silver-haired woman. Valletta watched from the front row as that silver-haired beauty who never showed any emotion on her face murdered and destroyed thousands of her people in cold blood, with an expression that demonstrated all her anger pent up over the years. Valletta trembled and had nightmares for long nights, dreaming of that expression of total anger. He even admitted that he had wet himself on the fighting field and in bed when he dreamed about that face. He would never say it openly, but Althea left him with a severe trauma. The only reason they won was because finally after 17 hours of fighting Althea's illness acted and weakened her too much, giving them the opportunity to kill her. But even being weak, Althea faced the top brass of Evilis on her own, and of the former 10 top executives she left only 2 alive, the weakest ones. Why did she and Roger, who at that time were the weakest of the high command, survive? Simple, for Althea they weren't worth it, they weren't even close to her heels, and they were already seriously injured because the previous juggernaut had attacked them. But they managed to survive somehow. Although after that massacre he appeared. At that time level 4, being the most powerful of the level 4 and an adventurer who was simply considered a madman. Yes, bellcranel appeared, really excited and went to help his last family who were being shoveled by a cursed sword. It was Valletta who gave the final blow to kill Althea and ran away from there, but her shadow reached Bell's eyes, who kept her in his memory for all this time. Slap. Valletta spat out blood and blinked in surprise, she had lost herself in thought. Hey. Valletta also looked at the devilish smile that Bell was giving. Bell. Don't fall asleep, we're not done yet. Valletta tried to kick Bell, but he simply punched her chest before grabbing her by the hair and lifting her off the ground with a mocking smile. Bell, now I'm getting bored so I'll do the same to you as to him, pointing behind him. Valletta looked with difficulty at the thing that was behind Bell and was horrified. It was not a thing, it was Roger who already looked dead, and it would be surprising if he wasn't. After all, he was missing the part from the waist down, and his organs and intestines were hanging around staining the floor with blood. Valletta was helpless as Bell tightened his grip on her neck and threw her against a wall with terrifying force. The wall of aurich alchemy that had taken them years to create was cracked horribly as Valletta's bones crumbled and pierced her own body. Valletta was already on her last legs, but a red potion that hit her in the head and destroyed her told her otherwise. When the red liquid spilled out, his wounds magically healed and Valletta looked at his body in surprise. He had blood, but that was because of the massacre a few moments ago. Now his body was completely healed. He looked at Bell to receive a surprise that came when a white knife was stuck into his shoulder. Valletta. Ah. Moaning in pain. Bell. You didn't think I'd kill you just like that, did you? You dared to murder the only family I had, my only family, so this is going to hurt, smiling, and I'm going to enjoy it. Bell walked slowly towards Valletta with a chilling smile that Valletta recognized, it was identical to hers. Valletta cried and resigned herself to her fate. Bell was walking through the dark streets of Riveria with tranquility, pure happiness, flooding his rabbit face as he walked at a pace towards his home. As he walked he tried to avoid people while carrying a human-sized black bag. He avoided people as much as he could and arrived at the Folklinger where he was received by Otter. Otter. What are you carrying? Looking at him expressionlessly. Bell. My prize, smiling. Otter. I see, letting it pass. Bell smiled and continued walking through the Folklinger while receiving looks of fear and admiration from the other members of the Freya family. Everyone seeing the bag knew where it was going. All the executives had a greeting or a certain special where they could ask or put whatever they wanted. An example was Alan, who had a room full of cat litter. Although nobody knew this except the other executives, Otter had a weapons warehouse where all his trophies were, which were weapons. And they could choose whether to let someone into their area or not, or whether to make it public, and only 2 executives allowed the other lower-ranking members to enter their areas, Belle and Hogni. That wizard had a large library as a personal area where everyone could enter and study all kinds of magic and potions, all the theorem books collected and obtained by Hogni, although of course, you couldn't toner the borrowed books or ruin them, because certain death awaited you and Belle. Well, he had his trophy area. What did he mean by this? Simple. Belle entered his area being followed by many of the employees who had already seen this before, except for the new ones. Belle pulled a body out of the black bag, the tortured, bruised, electrocuted, gutted, etc. body of Valletta. On his face, one could only see an expression of absolute terror and pain, something that Belle enjoyed. Belle grabbed the body of the dirty pink hair, and with his scythe he cut off his head. Belle also held his head as if it were a trophy and showed it to all the members of his family, who looked at him expectantly and some impatiently. Belle smiled as he held a silver spear that once belonged to Valletta and thrust the tip of the spear beneath Valletta's severed neck and walked over to his other trophies. Six heads of different people that Belle hated to death, nailed with his own weapons with which Belle cut their throats and exhibited them as a prize to the public. Belle put the spear in there and put a small seal on it that worked to keep the head from rotting, courtesy of Hedon. Belle. Now, showing the body, do what you want with it. Belle threw Valletta's body towards the other employees, who quickly grabbed the body while they fought. That had also happened with Belle's previous victims. They all became his trophies. He cut off their heads and pierced them with his weapon, then he threw their bodies away so that the other employees could do what they wanted with it. They could throw it in the trash, use it for experiments, use it as a guinea pig or as a training dummy, and if it was completely destroyed, they would throw a potion of mermaid blood on it to heal its wounds and or grape its lifeless body. Something that didn't really matter to Belle, who looked at his trophies with pride. There were several heads, 4 of men and the other 2 of women, or well now 3. 7. Valletta agreed. A pink-haired woman from the Thanatos family who had been responsible for the death of her aunt. 6. Coco Collins. A small palom with grass-green hair who belonged to the Soma family, her sin. She had voluntarily thrown a bottle of wine at the goddess Freya and called her a boar, and after being tortured in different ways for a whole month by all the members of the Freya family, she was finally given to the other members as a hex slave until she died from lack of food when Belle forgot to feed her. 5. Sophie. The guild advisor with pale purple hair who turned out to be an evilous infiltrator, tried to kill Rose, but just at that moment Belle was arriving from the dungeon and managed to stop her attack. Obviously she suffered the same fate as the aforementioned. 4. Vil Krazo. The person responsible for the death of one of his former friends and personal blacksmith Welf Krazo, the ever-burning, level 3, after Belle captured Belle, the man was personally tortured by Belle and incinerated alive, then healed and finally killed by the magic swords he so coveted. 3. Canoe Belway. An ugly and fat raccoon man from the Soma family, responsible for the death and grape of his former friend and helper Lilaruka Ard, Theiona, level 2, the man was castrated with a hammer and then graped by several men to suffer the same fate, then forced to eat his own member and finally removed his eyes and then introduced small powerful bombs in them that exploded the man. 2. Luinespel. Member of the Apollo family who Belle simply disliked him so he murdered him in cold blood. V. And the most important of all. 1. Silver Cranel. A man with black hair and red eyes who. Classified. Belle was walking exhausted after a tiring day for him, but he had finally killed the ugly-haired boar. He returned to his room calmly where he looked at Revis, who was caressing Yuki in a chibi way, who seemed to like the caresses. Belle. Hello, calm. Revis Belle-sama. Hi-oo. Both Rev and the rabbit jumped towards Belle, knocking him to the ground. Yuki sat on his head while moving his little paws in an adorable way while he watched as Revis snuggled into Belle's chest, who simply touched his shoulders and let himself be loved. Aiming a redeed 04. Lemon skipped. Belle left Revis noticing that she was already asleep, completely exhausted. It was normal. It was her first time and she had to deal with someone of Belle's caliber. Belle sighed slightly disappointed and left Revis on the bed before lying down next to her and sleeping without any worries. It was a new day in the schedule. And for the Loki family it was one less day before leaving on an expedition. In a room of the Twilight Mansion, Finn Dame, the captain of the family, could be seen studying some plans about Daedalus Street, more exactly about its pipes. Finn. I still don't understand how someone attracted those plants to the monster fair, suggesting his chin. It's obvious that they didn't take them out through the main entrance, or we would have noticed. That only leaves us with another option. Looking at the map, a second entrance, connected to all the pipes of Riveria, or at least those on Daedalus Street. If we go down we might find the second entrance, but we can't bring the whole family or they would notice. It would be best to do a small expedition with the other executives, thinking, but that would be after this expedition to the dungeon, leaving the map on the table. Knock knock. Finn. Come in, calmly. The door opened revealing a certain golden-haired girl who looked anxious, or well, it didn't show, but for Finn who had been taking care of her just like Riveria and Gareth knew how to read Aiz in a certain way, and Finn knew why she was anxious. Finn. Only a few more days until the Aiz expedition, sighing. Aiz lowered her shoulders slightly, disappointed. She wanted to go to the dungeon now. She needed to become stronger, she needed to achieve a power superior to that of those people. Curiously, both were extremely similar. That silver-haired beauty and that white-haired demon, both extremely similar and at the same time complete opposites, but there was something they both shared, and that was talent. Aiz was sure that if both monsters faced each other, it would be total chaos. Fortunately that woman with the nickname Silence died years ago. Unfortunately the Estrie family also died with her, but leaving the sad past aside. Finn. Why don't you go explore the streets? You might find something interesting, arranging some papers. Aiz nodded without seeing any problem and was about to leave the office until he finally stopped her. Finn. And don't spend all your money on Jag-American, smiling. Aiz blushed slightly in embarrassment and nodded. A few months ago she had spent almost $500,000 Valis on Jag-American, not even she was capable of eating so many, so she saved them for other days, although in the end, Riveria ended up giving them to the other members of the family if they wanted them. There were quite a few, and Riveria didn't want them to go to waste, so she gave them away. Sure, Aiz had avoided Riveria for a whole month after that, but nothing a good scolding cough threatens with water cough won't do. Aiz shook her head a little, leaving the traumas aside and walking towards the exit of the Twilight Mansion. She had to make her country proud, she had to. Eating Jag-American. And so a determined Aiz left the Twilight Mansion to satisfy her stomach. And just at that moment, all the Jag-American sellers trembled. The streets of Riveria were silent, mainly because everyone was silent looking at the almighty king. Otter walking through the streets of Riveria carrying like a sack of potatoes, a certain white-haired man who was sleeping like a cat without a care in the world on his face. Otter walked to the commercial area leaving both civilians and adventurers paralyzed by the aura of power that emanated from him, also by his face that looked irritated. Otter walked up to a specific stand and looked expressionlessly at the only person besides Belle in that place who didn't look at him with fear or dread. No, in fact, there in front of him was a person who had even made him tremble with fear. There it was. Otter Anna-sama, bowing slightly. Anna. Ara. Otter-san, how have you been? Are you coming to pay the bill Belle-san left you? Smiling kindly, you know what will happen if you don't pay, right Otter-san? Smiling innocently, on R. Otter. Gulp yes, Vietnam memories. Chask. Anna. Otter, snapping her fingers in front of him, wake up, you still have to pay me, expressionless. Otter. Why yes, taking out a bag of Valis, this should pay the entire bill. Anna. 130,450, Valis, perfect, everything is fine, smiling. Otter. And the change. Anna. Otter. No, nothing. After that small conversation, Otter quickly left without looking back where Anna was waving goodbye to Belle, who was also smiling at her, while holding a bag of Jag-American that he had secretly bought from Otter. Otter. You'll pay for that, expressive. Or well, almost secretly from Otter. Without either of them knowing, this scene had been watched for several minutes by a golden-haired girl who had come here to buy at the best Jag-American stand in Riveria. Anna. Oh darling, how have you been? Smiling. Aiz well Anna-sama, bowing slightly, could give me. Anna. The usual, right. I already have it ready, showing a bag. I just finished making them, so they're hot, smiling. Yep, the best Jag-American seller. Aiz. Thanks, Ito, taking out her Valis bag. Anna. It would be 1,000 Valis, extending her hand. Aiz calmly paid Anna and left while eating one of her Jag-American, she was lost in her thoughts. Aiz. It seems like he and the king get along well, looking at the sky, can I get along with him like that? Tilts her head. Aiz put her thoughts aside and sat down at a nearby fountain to eat her Jag-American in peace. While on another side of the city, far away, Otter could be seen inspecting one of the Riveria sewers while eating a Jag-American. On his shoulder, lying like a sack of potatoes, was Belle while also eating a Jag-American with a chibi face. Belle. I think we should go check the pipe on the left, biting the Jag-American. Otter. Reason. L. Intuition, smiling. Otter simply walked towards the corridor on the left, finding a completely normal wall, well. Normal in quotes since his sharp level 7 vision could see something on the wall. Otter. The symbol of Evilis, expressionless. L. Are we going to do something or are we just going to go back and leave it to the Loki family? Eating his Jag-American. Otter MMMM, for now it's better to leave it to the Loki family, expressionless. LF wanted to have a little fun, showing his knives. Otter Vayman. Crash. Otter sighed reluctantly as the wall behind him obviously collapsed, not by itself, but because of someone else. Otter. I need a vacation, turning around. L. We could have them, just tell Freya-sama, smiling. Otter. We have to take care of her, looking at him. L. We take care of her, but on the beach, with a sparkle in his eyes. Otter MMMM, thinking about it. Hey. Otter snapped out of his thoughts to see a fist slowly make its way towards his chest. Crack. Ah. A thin-looking man with long, messy white hair screamed in pain as his fist hit the king's chest and he dislocated his wrist, not only that, he broke some bones in his fingers as well. L. What an idiot, cleaning his ear. Otter simply walked towards the man who was holding his wrist in pain. As soon as the man saw him walk towards him, he tried to crawl back but hit something. The wall. No, he had destroyed the wall, so what co? The man was in shock when he turned his head and saw who he had collided with. Standing there was a white-haired man with red eyes who gave a sweet smile as he pulled out 2 white knives from who knows where. I won't tell you anything, suggesting his hand. L. No need, I just want to kill you, holding the knife like a murderer. The man trembled slightly at Belle's sadistic smile, but luckily for him Belle was stopped by Bose. Otter. Wait, we need to get information out of him, expressionless. L. And what's the best method? Smiling. Otter. L. Well, I won't be able to use my knives, but I can use my feet, lifting my leg a little. Otter, raising his fist. After a great coup we can see the thin-looking man. What the buck is that? The poor man was lying on the ground with his face disfigured, several parts of his body were at unreal angles, and his chest looked sunken in thanks to his ribs being shattered literally. L. That was fun, stretching, now, I feel like we forgot something, thoughtful. Otter. We forgot to get information from him, looking at him. L. Yeah, that's it, scratching his cheek. Otter. Sighing, let's go back, we might find more things elsewhere, turning around. LMMMM, should we stay? Taking a Jag-American out of the bag. Otter reason. L. Intuition. Otter walked before standing next to Belle who already had the Jag-American in his mouth. L. Do you want it? Extending the bag. Otter reached out to grab the bag and just as he was about to grab it, an unforgivable act happened. A sword came out of the destroyed wall and hit the bag of Jag-American, cutting it in half and causing all the Jag-American to fall into the sewer water. Hey you all. Several adventurers came out of the wall, although these had hoods with a symbol on them, the symbol of Evilis. The beast man with copper hair and tiger ears was in front of those almost 30 adventurers directing them, he was something like the leader. Beast man. Surrender and you will not die, drawing his sword. Belle and Otter didn't move, they just stood there with their hands still raised pretending to grab a bag, the Jag-American bag that was now lying in a puddle of dirty water. The man thought they were afraid and smiled arrogantly. Beast man. Don't worry, Thanato-sama will be kind to you if you don't resist. The beast man closed his mouth and fell to the ground without even being able to move when an impressive and terrifying aura of power was released, making all the adventurers there tremble. The beast man raised his head and his gaze was filled with terror when he saw the eyes of the white-haired man and Bose, which seemed to be red with anger, they were like the eyes of a demon. The pressure in the place increased causing all the adventurers who were kneeling to fall completely to the ground as they felt like those simple auras were crushing them. The beast man used it to raise his gaze a little to find some feet in front of him. It was Belle, who lifted his foot slightly before bringing it down at a terrifying speed, causing the beast man's head to explode, staining his feet with blood. The woman standing near him was about to scream if her mouth hadn't been covered by a large hand. The woman tried to scream and bite the hand, but before she could do so another giant hand grabbed one of her hips and lifted her off the ground. The woman watched in terror as a large Bose held her head and hip indifferently before beginning to pull them. Before she could even scream or moan in pain, Bose used much more force and mercilessly tore off her head, throwing it right in front of the group on the ground, who watched in fear as their companion's severed head was seen. Belle. They dared to throw away my precious Jag-American, unbuttoning his shirt. When Belle unbuttoned his shirt he showed how he had thousands of knives hidden in it. Otter. How dare you filthy scum throw away sacred food, lifting another adventurer by the neck, I'll rip your heads off. Hard-eyed. And so it was that a simple sewer was where one of the most gruesome serial murders in history took place, carried out by two angry adventurers who left that part of the sewer covered in blood, human parts and organs, everywhere. F to respect Jag American. The streets of Verario were silent, or well, only one of the streets in all of Verario had this deathly silence, and that was because of the two high-class adventurers who were sitting in a well-known bar while eating. Otter. The rabbit is very good, eating with a fork and knife. L. The wild boar special is also delicious, eating a wild boar with one of his white knives. Otter. You should have more manners, looking at him. L. Meh, we're not in front of Freya-sama, only she deserves our manners, looking at him lazily. Otter. True, but you should always have a little manners, wiping his mouth with a napkin. L. Your attitude has nothing to do with your appearance, taking a sip from the beer glass. Otter. I won't pay your bill, leaning back in the chair. L. I wasn't planning on asking you, showing his valise bag. Is the food good, guys? Both Belle and Otter turned their heads and looked at the large brown-haired dwarf. L. Otter-senpai, smiling expressionless. L. The food is as delicious as always, Mia-senpai, smiling. Otter nodding. Mia. Better than that stupid chef's. Smiling arrogantly. Otter thought for a bit before nodding calmly, unlike Belle, who nodded animatedly. Mia. Fine. Raising and lowering her fist, the chef of the Freya family is still inferior to me, crossing her arms. L. Whenever they see each other, they fight over who's the better chef, right? Smiling, if I'm not mistaken, it's a level 4, thinking. Mia. Yes, she has talent, but it's not as good as mine, pointing at herself. You have a lot of pride, Mia-san. Mia. It may be, but it's the truth. Now go back to work, May, looking at a brown-haired cat. May. Hi Naya, going to the kitchen. Mia. Well, it wasn't a pleasure talking to you at all. Have a normal day, leaving, so, stopping, and tell that stupid chef that he's still below me, returning to the kitchen. Otter. His love for cooking will never change, going back to eating. L. Well, if she hadn't become an adventurer she would have been a pretty famous chef, eating. Otter. Right, returning to his food. The reserves have arrived. Naya. The double doors of the bar opened, admitting a group of well-known high-class adventurers. Look, it's the Loki family. The family kills giants. True, they say that their goddess likes to frequent this place. Belle and Otter ignored the silence that the entrance of the Loki family created and continued eating peacefully. Belle. You should try the pasta, I think I'm using a new recipe, talking with his mouth full. Otter nodding. After a few seconds the Loki family was already seated at a large table in the center, while Anya and Lunwar took their orders. The golden-haired girl was looking at the menu until the roasted rabbit came to her eyes. In Aiza's mind she was chibi, while she raised some chopsticks holding an even more chibi and adorable Belle. Aiz. I want the roast rabbit, looking at Anya. Anya noted Naya. Half an hour later all their food had been delivered and uncles were chatting happily while eating. And Aiz looked slightly disappointed at a completely normal roasted rabbit. Aiz bunny, poking the rabbit with a fork. L. Shaking slightly. Otter. What's going on? Enemies. Seriously. L. My instincts tell me I'm in grave danger, but something tells me they're not enemies, smiling nervously. Returning with Aiz. Aiz ate a rabbit slightly disappointed while listening to her companion's conversation, although nothing they said caught her attention. Aiz looked around the bar to see if she found anything interesting and she did. Her eyes widened slightly at the sight of a large muscular figure sitting in front of the bar, though what caught Aiz's attention was his companion, much smaller than the white-haired one, wearing strange clothes while finishing eating a wild boar. L. It was delicious, rubbing his stomach. Otter. It's time to go, we must inform Freya-sama, and I think Alan is quite angry about why we left Freya-sama unprotected, expressionless. L. Are you? But isn't Alan looking after her? Confused. Otter. Yes, but he thinks that we don't want to take care of her, and that's why we gave him the job, taking out his valise bag. L. Saka, thinking, well I will quickly go with Freya-sama and report the situation immediately, smiling. Otter. Wait, did you forget to pay, Belle? Turning around, take me, seeing that Belle wasn't there. In the distance, while the Great King complained about why Belle had left him the bill again, Aiz looked perplexed at the seat where Belle had previously been sitting. Aiz. Before she disappeared, I could only see a small white blur. Is it that fast? Looking at the fertility hostess's exit. Aiz ignored the screams of my mother who was threatening Otter with paying the bill or washing the dishes. In the end, Otter also ended up paying for Belle. F to respect Otter. Leaving aside the author's antics. Aiz watched the hostess leave before getting up from the table. Riveria Aiz. Raising an eyebrow. Aiz. I have to do something, leaving some valise on the table, see you at the mansion, walking towards the exit. Riveria. Yes, surprised. After Aiz left the fertility host, he headed towards a specific place. Daedalus Street. Aiz looked with a little distrust at the entrance to Daedalus Street. She had already gotten lost once there at a monster fair, and honestly it wasn't nice to be walking 15 hours lost all over Daedalus Street. If it weren't for Riveria who had appeared there to look for her, she probably wouldn't have gotten out of there for a few days. Aiz was brought out of her thoughts when a knife was placed at her neck. Belle. Hello. Happy. Aiz. Hello, looking at him out of the corner of her eye, please take your hand away from there, slightly blushing. Belle. Yes, sorry, taking his hand out of Aiz's skirt, and what is a beautiful golden-haired princess doing on a mysterious street like Daedalus? Smiling. Aiz blushed slightly at Belle's words, but answered him. Aiz. I looked for you, expressionless. Belle. Ara. I'm flattered that a beautiful princess is looking for me, pointing to himself, but why? Looking at her curiously. Aiz. Belle. Raising a curious eyebrow. Aiz. I don't know, Chibi. Belle. You don't know. Chibi. Aiz. No, shaking his head. Belle. Could it be that you're a bit of an airhead, princess? Smiling nervously. Aiz. Hollow head. Tilts head. Belle. Forget it, you said you were coming to find me, right? Aiz high, nodding. Belle. Well, I'll leave today's patrol to someone else. What do you think if we have a confrontation? Smiling. Aiz. A fight. Looking at him with a sparkle in her eyes. Belle. Yep, that's right, smiling. Aiz nodded and blinked in surprise as the cold night air hit her face. Aiz looked around noticing how the houses looked distorted and strange, not only that, she was also passing them at great speed. Just at that moment Aiz realized that she was on Belle's back while he was carrying her and running at a speed that she had never reached. Aiz. So this is what he feels when he runs, closing his eyes. Belle. Isn't the wind on your face relaxing? Smiling. Aiz high, enjoying the sensation. After a short run at a normal speed according to Belle, Aiz and Belle were in a somewhat desolate place. Standing there were only a white-haired man and a golden-haired woman. Belle. Are you ready? Smiling. Aiz. You don't have a scythe, expressionless. Belle. And you don't have your sword, smiling. Aiz. Belle. What do you think if we fight with knives? Taking out a pair of his white knives. Aiz took the knives with hesitation, she had never used knives before, so Belle had a big advantage, or so she thought. Belle. And of course I'll use nothing. Smiling happily. Aiz blinking. Belle. Haha, don't worry, I'm an expert when it comes to knives and long-distance weapons, so to make this not so unfair, I won't use anything, and you'll use the knives, okay? Looking at her. Aiz nodded and tried to replicate his sword pose, but with knives. Belle smiled at this and raised both hands in front of his face with one fist open and one closed. Belle. Okay. Hajim. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.